Welcome to another video on macroeconomics. Today we're going to discuss what is the relationship between monetary policy and prices in the long run. So in our previous discussion, in previous videos and lectures, we talked about how the central bank can influence spending and economic activity by expanding or contracting the amount of money in circulation in the economy in a counter-cyclical manner, meaning when the economy is going through a recession, expand the amount of money, and that will boost spending and help the economy get out of the recession, and vice versa in the economic booms. Now, that seems to be a little bit strange because it gives us the impression that nothing is changing in the economy. Imagine you're playing a game of Monopoly where the board is the same, the pieces are the same, nothing has changed, but now you start playing with double the amount of fake money, of pieces of paper. How is it that now we can have more economic activity as a result of that? It would seem that the only effect that should have is to make, if now we're playing the same board of Monopoly but double the amount of pieces of paper, that should mean pieces of paper are just worth half of what they were. Or another way of saying, money has less value, which is to say prices go up. So this argument gives us a little bit of an idea that printing money should really have no effect on the economy, on the real economy, but it should only have an effect on prices. And that's what economists refer to as monetary neutrality. So how can we reconcile these two ideas? So to understand this, economists look at something that is referred to as the Fisher equation, and it helps us understand what is the relation between the total amount of money in circulation and economy and the price level. So what does the Fisher economy do? Essentially, we have on the left-hand side, we have the total amount of money, the money supply, the economy, and we have the average number of times each piece of paper is used. And when you combine those two, that should be equal to the total value of transactions that take place in the economy, which is nominal GDP, the average price level times the real output. So the right-hand side is the usual nominal GDP, the total values of goods and services traded in the economy. The left-hand side is saying, well, if all of those transactions were done with money, there should be enough money for that. And so the total amount of money multiplied by the average number of times the money is used should give us an identity by definition, because otherwise what are people using to trade? Unless they're doing barter, those two things should be equal. So the Fisher equation, more than an equation, should be called an identity because it's true by definition. Now obviously, in reality, we don't observe V, the average number of times that money is used, but we do observe M, P, and Y. And so even if we don't observe V, we can make a simplifying assumption, and let's suppose just that the amount of times money is used is constant in an economy, it doesn't change. So under that assumption, we can see that the Fisher identity or the Fisher equation will give us a relationship between money and being created and inflation. Now before we do that, let me illustrate this equation with a simple, very simple economy, okay? And our simple economy is going to be constructed of two transactions, okay? Tom is going to buy a haircut from Mary, and then Mary is going to buy a haircut from John. And this economy, the total amount of money in circulation, M, is $20. There's one $20 bill in circulation. And what would be the price? Well, obviously, there's only one bill in circulation. The haircut is going to cost $20. And so what would be the total output in this economy? Well, there's two haircuts being created, so Y would be two haircuts. The price of a haircut is $20, so the total nominal GDP in this economy will be the two haircuts times $20 each, $40. And how many times is this $20 bill used? It's used twice. And so if we look at the total amount of money in circulation, the $20 bill times V, which is 2 here because the dollar bill is used twice, we also get those $40 back. Okay. Now, that just illustrates what the different terms are capturing in the equation. Now to think about how adding more money will affect this. Let's suppose that now we introduce a second $20. The Central Bank of Canada prints another $20 bill and dumps it in this economy. But the real economy, namely the economic relations between Tom and Mary, hasn't changed. And so Mary's still buying one haircut from Tom, Mary's still buying one haircut from John, and Tom is still buying one haircut from Mary. Now, since there's more bills in circulation, the only way things add up is that now the haircut is going to cost $40 each. Each bill still used twice, but we see the only effect is that, assuming that each bill still is used twice, the only effect is that we double the amount of money in circulation and then we double the price of a haircut. Okay, and that's the basis of the quantity theory of money. Okay, doing it a little bit more technically, if you look at the percentage change of the left-hand side and the percentage change of the right-hand side, you have a product. The percentage change of the product of M times B is approximately the sum of the percentage growth rate of each term. The percentage growth rate of the money supply is the new money being printed in the economy as a percentage of however much money we had before. The percentage change in velocity is zero because we are assuming the average time money is used is constant. And then the percentage, if we do the same thing on the other side of the equation, we have that the percentage change in nominal GDP is essentially the sum of the inflation rate and the growth in real output. And so basically, this is the equation that allows us to relate and tells us the inflation rate is going to be whatever money supply growth we have in excess of whatever real output growth is taking place. And you can think of that basically saying that the increase in real output is the increase in the need for transactions. So that's the money we need. If real output grows, if now we have 3 haircuts or 4 haircuts, we need more money to carry out those additional transactions. But whatever money is growing in excess of that, beyond what we need for additional transactions, all of that is just going to go into prices and create inflation. And so if we had that the money is growing at 10% and real output growth is 2%, then we would expect in that economy, according to this theory, to have an 8% inflation rate. Okay, so here, the main determinant of inflation is the growth of the money supply, the amount of money the central bank is printing. Notice this is a very different theory from the one we talked about when we talk about the central bank conducting policy, where there the central bank increasing the money supply had an effect on real output, so had an effect on the real economy. Here, the money is what we call neutral. It has no effect on real output. It only has an effect on nominal variables, namely on the price level of the economy and how fast money is losing value, namely the inflation rate. So this leads to what sometimes is referred to as a monetary view. The monetary view says inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. In other words, what causes inflation? Inflation is always and everywhere caused by the central bank printing too much money that people don't want for transactions. And so that's going to cause inflation. Typically, economists think that for this to be the case, you need enough time for prices to adjust. So we can reconcile both views, and that's the way most economists think about it, that money is not neutral in the short run, meaning in the short run, when prices are fixed, we can boost spending by lowering the interest rates and increasing the money supply, and that can have real effects. But then as prices adjust, on the long run, all we're going to achieve by printing more money is creating inflation. So that's kind of like the more modern view is that money is not neutral in the short run, and that's why the central bank can do monetary policy, but you cannot create goods and services out of thin air by just printing more pieces of paper in the long run. So money is neutral in the long run. Dumping more money in the economy, all it's going to do is create inflation. And for that reason, sometimes people refer to as printing money as an inflationary tax, okay? Because it's taking away the purchasing power of everybody else holding that money. Okay, so to summarize, in the long run, the monetarist view says if you increase the amount of money in circulation by 10%, basically you're going to create 10% inflation. Okay. Now, there is some data. If you look at data, you have here on the horizontal axis, each dot here is a country, and we have the growth rate of the money supply minus growth rate of real GDP. So that would be the right-hand side of our equation. The left-hand side of the equation is the inflation rate. we see we have a lot of points pretty close to that line. So this is the evidence. This is a long-term average. So this would suggest that in the long term, the quantity theory of money is right, but in the short term, not so much. You can see some of these points are not exactly on the line as we would expect. That perhaps has to do with the velocity of circulation. When the economy goes into a recession, people use money less. And you can see this, for example, as the COVID recession struck, the velocity of circulation went down quite significantly, almost by 40%. Okay, that's going to have an effect on our inflation as well. Okay, so anyway, this is just to put a little bit of context on what is the effect of the money supply in the long run. The monetarists would say everything just goes to inflation. All right, let's finish here. Thanks for watching.